Welcome along to another edition of my garden transformation. In this video you're going to see how I installed some of these drains, which are really good, nice sleek little design feature for the garden to get all that pesky water away. And also you're going to see my first attempt at grouting. It's a very steep learning curve, but fortunately I've been able to do it in my own garden, so it's somewhere good to learn, and I did learn a lot of lessons very fast. Right then guys, so I have got some of these in, which is a very exciting step forward. Some of my slot drains have now been installed. I didn't film this because there was a lot of messing around to do with it, and to be totally honest, I didn't have the cameras when I was here. So I am going to show you the installation process of the rest of them, because I have got another line to go up there and then a return across that back edge over there as well. You can see that I've managed to join it into my run. So if you remember, I've got a land drain running down here, and then that goes into this silt trap here. And what I've also done is basically put a Y piece down here, which is connected out here and then joined into this. The thing with these is they need to go in basically level all the way round, so you don't put a slope from the furthest away point down to this point. They all go in level, so then the water just naturally builds up and then runs out and finds the path of least resistance, which is this big hole here. It's a proper adapter from Patio, which goes into 110mm underground fitting, so that's all good. I am going to just run a little bit of extra silicone around this just to make sure it's nice and sealed and there's never any leakage there. Down this end, because obviously I'm returning and going around corners, for these you can get like a square piece that fits here, but I didn't really like the look of it, so I've gone for this option, which is basically cutting a 45-degree angle on it, and then I'm going to use some OB1 construction adhesive. I'll see which is the best one for this solution, and then just basically glue this together with this piece here, cut another 45 on this one, and then glue that onto there. You can see I've got all this dug out. This stuff is an absolute nightmare. It's proper clay, so much that I've had to use a Kango and a mattock and everything just to dig through this. I have gone a little bit deep, so I am going to line it with some MAT like you can see here, mainly because I've got loads of it left over and I'm just going to use it up a little bit in there. You don't need to, especially with the ground this solid underneath, so I could just go straight on that with the sand and cement, but I am going to put a bit of MAT in the bottom just so it's nice and solid. It's never going to go anywhere, and like I say, I've got loads of this left over, so might as well use it up somewhere. You can see here as well, obviously it's not flaunched in yet fully. I literally just basically put a bed in across the bottom and then leveled these out and then sat them in like that, and now I can flaunch it in now that's gone off. If you try and do it all in one go, so bed it and then flaunch it as well, there's a good chance that it will move. So that is why I've done it this way. I've learned from installing these before that that is the best way to do it. So you make sure it's solid first and then you can flaunch it in to make sure that it never ever budges. So right, I need to get this one cut and then mix some muck up, and then we can get these laid in. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. First way, ideal way, is just to put this on a miter saw and cut it. If you've got a miter block, maybe you could do it like that with a handsaw, or if you've got a chop saw, you could use that. It is only plastic, so you could easily cut through this. I haven't got either of those things, so I'm going to use this and this. Basically all I've done is took the lid off. You can see here like that, just took the lid off it, and I'm now going to just mark 45 degrees. I've marked my top already like that. I'm just going to transfer this now down here to a point there, and then I can transfer that over like that, so I know then my cut is going to be 45 degrees here. Should also put a line straight down, so you can see the more marks you can put on this the better. You can see I've got a line straight down here, so I just need to cut on the inside of that line to match in with these lines, and then my 45 degree across there. That will then give the lid my 45 degree angle that I need. So let's go ahead and get that cut. Okay, so I've now got my 45 degree angle on here, so I know that my top will match up with my existing bit. Just clean these edges off as well. You can use a file. Most of these just peel off like that because it's just plastic that's just heated up, so you can soon get those burrs off nice and easily. And then all we're going to do now is just repeat that process on the base. I need 45 degrees across here, right up to the edge, and then we can just get that cut, drop our top back on and go and get it stuck on. I've got my cut done, I've married that up, it looks lovely, I'm happy with that. I'll show you that in a minute. I've got a slot drain running across here and a slot drain running down here. to there and then straight across there. And what it's going to do is basically take the rainwater that comes off the patio out through the drainage. With this amount of porcelain tiles down, you don't want any standing water. So everything's got a 1 in 60 fall, as I've explained before, straight down to these. So this will then fall this way, this pathway that comes up here. It's going to be a tile and a half wide. So you can see I've got a tile and a half there, tile in there, half in there, so ready to drop these all in, boom, 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 along the way. So what I've done, I've used my tile line there to set myself a string line up, which runs in a line. It's just to the side of the joint there, because what that allows is a little bit of wiggle room, and I also don't want my tile butted right up to it. I just want to make sure that I've got the space to move and do what I need to do down here, because I can soon move things about slightly if I need to. The reason I'm putting these in first rather than putting those in is that obviously you've got to dig these into the ground to make sure you've got a good 50mm bed on the bottom of these. So I didn't want to lay all my porcelain tiles and then have to start scratching away beside them in case one, I hit them, or two, I disturb the MOT underneath or any of the mortar that's underneath them. I don't want to risk them delaminating at all, so I'm fitting these in first. That's why I've had to come a certain distance, so now I know that one tile is going to fit in there perfectly up to where I need it to be, and I'll be bang on. So now I've got my line set up, I've got my angle cut, we can get these bedded in. So what I'm going to do is get some muck in here now, get this first one down, and then show you what I've done. ACO recommend 50mm underneath these. So it's also worth noting that they do have different slots. So this end has got this lug thing on and the other side has got a slot on. So if you are laying these, word of advice is make sure you get these the right way around, because once this is down you need to slot the next one onto it. So they have this in the other side. They slot together like that. Okay, so if you put them the other way around, once you've bedded this down, you'll then have to lift it up to be able to do that slot in action, which you don't really want to be doing. So you've got to make sure they're the right way around. So you need the lug side sticking out so you can slot the next one on top of it. Right, I'm going to get a bed down on here now, and then we can get this bedded in and I'll show you what we're doing. Right then, so I've got my first section in here, so there's 3.5 in there, including my cut. They're all string lined up nicely, and we're also nice and leveled across the top. So basically all I did, as you saw, was drop some muck in there. I know the base that is in here is pretty level anyway, because I've just made it that way to make life a lot easier. Dropped some muck in there, ruffled it all up, and then basically just sat the individual pieces in as I went along. In the base first, just to make sure I was pretty much where I needed to be, but also then put the tops on, because they are really the defining factor when it comes to my tiles. So you need to make sure that both of them are as level as possible together. These ones are sort of ACO's entry-level things, cheaper things, so they're not the best made. They are brilliant, don't get me wrong, but they're not as robust as the other ones that they do. So there is a bit of flex and stuff, so trying to get it all level is a bit of a nightmare, I'll be totally honest, but with a little bit of perseverance you can actually get there, and they're bang on, they're where they need to be. I'm not entirely happy with my joint over there, but once this has all gone off, I can just pop the lids off and I can seal that up all nicely from inside. So that will finish nicely, there'll be no leakages, and also when I've done the tiling you won't see the joint anyway, so I'm perfectly happy with that in that respect. Right, I'm just going to get some more mixed up now, get probably another one in there I reckon, just at the end, and then I can think about my cut for this, but for now I'm only going to get that in because I want to drop it in up to this point and then get the rest of the tiling done up to here, so it just makes this all tidy around this area basically. And then I'm just going to get this area here that's already gone off properly flaunched in, so that's all good to go. And then next up, finish these tiles, get this bit done. Like I said, I'm going to return this across here, but until I've brought my tiles a little bit closer, I'm not going to know exactly where it's going to land, so I don't yet want to start digging this out because I don't know exactly where everything is. I'm just trying to do it piece by piece, a bit methodically, so I can make sure everything joins up properly. So right, crack on with this. This one's all flaunched in. This one is just roughly flaunched, just to hold it, like I mentioned earlier, just to let that go off fully before we flaunch it. And then this one is all good and ready to go. You can see I've popped the lids off. I'm just gonna have a quick clear out inside, just get any crap out of there. And also what I've done, I've kept it quite tight on this side. As you can see, I'm a little bit sort of in, it's quite a vertical flaunch. Reason being that this grass going here, and my edging tile is going to finish probably about here, so I don't want much concrete under here because I want to keep this as drainable as possible, and obviously because there's soil going on there and whatever, I want to make sure there's as little of this into the grass area as possible. And also it just gives me a little bit of flexibility on these edges, so I can get my tops back in, because the lugs do actually fit in there and they need a little bit of flex just to be able to do that. So if I'd have flaunced right up to here on both sides, then I wouldn't have been able to do that once this has all gone off, and I wouldn't be able to get my lids back in there. So that is the reason why I've set it just down slightly. And then that's it. My corner has gone off. It's all sealed up. That's turned out pretty nice. Hopefully you agree with that one, because I'm quite chuffed with it, to be totally honest. It is a bit of a shame that I only had anthracite Obi-Wan. However, you're not going to really notice. Once the tiles are up here, you're never going to see that anyway. So this corner's turned out really good. I'm very impressed. I've also squeezed them in the joint, and then I squeezed them together, and then obviously smudged it all off, put a bit over the front, and I've just basically sealed the back in as well, just to make sure that nothing comes through that I don't want. Obviously if any water comes through, that's not a problem, but if you start getting any soil migrate, well, there's not going to be any soil here, but you know what I'm saying. I want to just keep it sealed up, so that's what I've done. It is summer, so naturally it's chucking down, so I've nicked my gazebo and I'm using that to keep me protected. So what I'm going to do, because it's chucking down with rain, I have cut a piece for over there, but I'm not going to get that in yet. I'm going to just basically start here and start working my way up the path, because I can then move my gazebo down with me. I can only go a certain way, like I've explained before, because obviously I need to get my measurements to see where this is going to return across there. So I'll get as far as I can get, and then I'm not going to do that today, no way. Hopefully by then I can start going back over there and doing that, and then working my way back up here, which means I've at least got some patio area for now, and I'm going to stop me traipsing crap into the house all the time. Everything's basically set now. I just need to run a line across here, keep these level across the back, and then they'll just naturally fall towards here because of how I've obviously set everything out already. There is a slight difference obviously because that tips that way. There's going to be a bit of making good here just to slant these down on this run towards that, and then everything else will just run in nicely. Then that will work very well. I better get on with it. It's looking peaky, but I've got this, so I'll be fine. Let's do it. I am not a tiler, and I have struggled doing this patio. That is why I haven't filmed much of it, because it has been a massive learning curve for me. It is now done though. The tiles are down. A big leap from when you last saw it. I am very impressed with it, to be honest, overall. However, there are some bits that I'm not happy with. Like I say, I've never done this before. This was my first attempt at doing this. It's been a baptism of fire, to be totally honest. And like I say, there are bits that I'm not happy with. I didn't want to show me doing it because obviously, you know, we like to be at the pinnacle of everything that we do. And because I'd never done it before, and because I wasn't confident in the slightest at doing it, I wanted just to be able to knuckle down and just get it done, and I didn't want to be giving any wrong information or doing things wrong, because I know the things that I would have done would probably have been picked apart, and rightly so, because it's probably, you know, I have made mistakes along the way, so hence why I haven't filmed it as much as I should have. There have been bits that obviously you've seen, but this is ultimately what we're looking at now. I am impressed with it. You know, it's a hell of a lot better than this big mound of earth that we had in the corner here. It makes the garden feel a hell of a lot bigger than what it was before. But there's just little things that obviously I didn't account for. For example, the tiles are 600 by 900. They are not 600 by 900. They are within a couple of mil, but that couple of mil makes all the difference. And obviously I was using my 5mm spacers everywhere, thinking, yeah, this is brilliant. And then you come onto the next row and it's kicked the tile over slightly, which then causes a knock-on effect and makes you have lots of issues like this, where there's a step in the joint and stuff like that. It can be helped. It is what it is. It's a learning curve, like I say. I've managed to get as well my acos as perfectly straight as possible, but when you're putting the muck down for this, it does push them over slightly. So I end up getting some tape and holding the tape over to try and hold them as straight as possible. But because these are, like I mentioned before, quite flimsy, it's been a bit of a mission to keep them straight. But overall, I'm pretty happy with how they look. That's basically where I'm at now with my tiles. Next up, we're going to grout them. So I am going to film the whole grouting process. Again, I've never used this grout, so we'll go over and I'll show you what grout we're using. We're using stuff from MKM that I've got. It's called Rock-Tight Flow Grout. This is specifically designed for porcelain tiles. So what this actually does, it's basically a slurry. So you mix it with water, and then what you do is then you basically just pour it straight on. And then you use a big squeegee to squeegee it into all the grout joints. And then what that does then, that runs down. So if there's any voids underneath, There shouldn't be, because obviously these need to be on a solid bed. If there are any voids underneath, that slurry just runs into there and creates a nice solid impermeable grout line. The impermeable thing is the key word there. There's been a lot of things that I've had to learn about this, and there's been a lot of questions that people don't seem to know the answer to. So my research has led me to believe that you need to have an impermeable grout on these tiles. Porcelain tiles are impermeable by nature. Impermeable obviously means that it doesn't allow water through. So if you use a brushing grout, which is permeable, that allows water to seep through. Because you've got a solid bed underneath there, what that does is just basically lets the water sit in that joint. During winter, when you've got freeze-thaw cycles to consider, that can obviously cause damage to the grout, because as soon as it freezes, the water in there, it expands and pops your grout. So by using an impermeable grout, that doesn't allow the water through. It allows the water to run away naturally with your fall that you've installed in your patio, like I have on this, and then that's it, the water's gone. It doesn't seep through, sit in there in the joint, and then crack your joint. That is why I'm using this. It seemed to be the best option, so I'm going to give it a go. It is charcoal. I'm hoping it's not the same colour as the lid. I have looked online. It is darker than this, because I'm hoping for like a as dark as possible, pretty black colour, to be honest, in there. Hopefully it will work well. I am a little bit petrified, to be honest, because it is black and we're going to just pour it all over these tiles and totally cover them, and then you've got to clean it off after and hope that your tiles are nice and white again afterwards. I'm sure it'll work fine. I'm sure it'll be fine. Now, all I'm doing now is waiting for the sun to go down a bit further, so this area is covered with shade, and then it's not going to kill it that quick, because it is actually a rapid set stuff. It does go off really fast, so it is recommended not to use it on a hot day. And amazingly, it's British summertime and we've got some hot weather for a change, so I'm just waiting for it to cool down a little bit so we can get this smashed in. We're going to have to basically work in stages, work our way down the patio. It's recommended to use a 5 kilogram bag at a time, do that area, get all that in, and then finish that, and then move on to the next, and so on and so on. So I'm going to be doing this over the course of a couple of days. So I have done what any self-respecting person would do, and I've just watched a video on YouTube about installing this stuff from Rocktite. So it's a little demo of what they've done. So basically what I need to do is do a little test and see, to make sure that it's not going to permanently stain my tiles, which I don't want. So what I'm going to do is mix some up, and I'm going to put some on that really thin so it dries quickly, and then I'm going to rub it off and hopefully it comes off. If not, then we're going to have to go to plan B. So I've filled this up a litre, marked on there, so I know in future that that is going to be a litre of water. So I'm going to put that in the bucket. So just need to cut the bag open like that, and then what they said is to put half in first, give it a stir, and then put the other half in. So let's do it. They also said to mix it on a low speed, because what you don't want to do is add too much air into the mix. So if you add too much air into the mix, apparently that can cause pitting, which you don't want. Obviously you want it to be a nice smooth grout. Right, so I can see now there's no bits in there, so that is it. I'm going to stop mixing there, and then just put a little bit on this tile and hope for the best. I'm happy with that. Looks like it's going to go, so fingers crossed. Right, let's get this in there. So that was the most stressful 3/4 of an hour of my life. It's in, it looks good. It does look like there's a little bit of staining, to be fair, but there was a bit over here that also had stained, and I've just used the pressure washer and it's come off very easily, so I'm not too concerned. It's gone really well, to be honest. It has totally destroyed my my sponge though, but it looks nice. I'm happy with it. Flowed in fairly easy, went pretty well, so overall happy with it. Right, in the next episode, I'm going to be starting on the structure of this pergola / shed combo. We're going to be getting the roof on. Take care, guys. See you next time.